everybody, it's Pete Hachel here. I hope you're doing really well and I hope you're staying safe during this really crazy time. That being the case, I thought it was time to share another episode of Boomer Guitarist Says. This is where I'm going to share my thoughts on playing live, what you should, what you shouldn't use, and have a little bit of fun along the way. So stick around and let's get started. So first up, I want to give a huge shout out to a mate of mine called Cy Hotman. He's one of Melbourne's great guitar players and I've seen him heaps and he's just a really cool dude. He actually commented on my last video and made some really good points about him using his Kemper stage. I've put his links below. Please check him out. Thanks. So here's the deal. If you're like me and you're playing bars, pubs, and even large clubs, you don't need expensive gear to do the gig. And there are guys and gals out there that do. You know, using $4,000 guitars, $3,000 pedal boards, and really expensive amplifiers. And I just really don't think they have to. So this is the Ibanez TS9 Tube Screamer. I love this pedal. It's a permanent fixture on my pedal board and I've had it for about a year now. I bought it for 169 Australian dollars and it's just great. Before I actually had the Tube Screamer, I had this. It's a Joyo Vintage Overdrive and it's fantastic. I bought this off eBay for, I believe it was 40 Australian dollars including shipping. Now, I'm not going to do an A-B shootout between these two guys. There's enough of those videos on YouTube already. But since I did change over to the Tube Screamer, I often wonder, why did I? Now, for the record, I actually think the Tube Screamer is a better pedal. I think it has a nicer top end, and I think the Joyo's probably a little too loud at times. But the difference is pretty small. And the Ibanez is 4 times the price of the Joyo. And I really don't think it's 4 times better. Also, I just got to confess, I actually keep this in my gig bag with a battery installed just in case my pedal board craps out. Because if that ever happens, all I have to do is plug this between my guitar and amp and I can do the rest of the gig if I need to. Now, just like me, I'm sure you guys have been to some gigs and you've seen the Guitarist and they've got a $4,000 or $5,000 Gibson Les Paul, an American custom shop Stratocaster, or even a PRS Custom 24. And there are like 20 people in the bar. And if you want to take that guitar to the gig, maybe it's the only guitar you have, maybe it's the guitar that you always play, or maybe it's just the guitar that you love. That's your choice and it's completely up to you. I just don't think you have to if you don't need to. Let me show you the guitars I play on stage and maybe you'll see what I mean. So let me show you the guitars I play every night, every time I play a gig. First up, this is my 2006 60th anniversary Arctic White Fender Stratocaster built in Mexico. It's a fantastic guitar. It sounds really cool. It always keeps in tune. These pickups are actually voiced like a vintage Strat, so it gives me a pretty authentic tone. And yeah, I use this for probably about 80% of the night. Now this one is my 1995 Mexican Standard Stratocaster. It's an awesome guitar. It is voiced a little differently. It's a little darker sounding, but I use this on some of the heavier tunes and this is predominantly my E-flat guitar. And it comes to me with every gig. And both of these guitars are awesome. They sound great, they play great, they stay in tune, and they do the job they're supposed to do. Now, I've had many people including some musicians, think that they're American Strats, and they're really surprised when I actually tell them they're not. As a matter of fact, way back in the day, we were playing a really small club with a maximum capacity of probably 100 people. There were a little more than 50 or 60 people there on the night, and we all had a great time, including the band. So the night finished up, and as always, people are starting to make their way home, and a few people are hanging around, talking and just doing whatever they do. And included in that was a friend of my bass player. And he came over and he started talking to me and he started saying how much of a great sound I had. And he started talking to me about my guitars and pedals and amps and all the rest of it. And he was really surprised that I was using really cheap gear. He originally thought that I was using American Strat, a Class A valve amp, and, top shelf pedals. And it's not that he didn't know what he was talking about. He's actually a very experienced musician. He's still a working musician, and he's been so for about the last 30 years. It's just that in that environment and in that mix, you just can't tell the difference. So let's go shopping for guitars. As before, everything is in Australian dollars, and everything was taken from Australian music reseller websites. Now, when I say shop for guitars, I don't mean we're going to shop for really, really cheap guitars or really, really expensive guitars. I want to try and hit that $1,000 sweet spot, maybe even under. So let's get started. First up, we have the Fender Player Stratocaster made in Mexico, $1,099. This thing's got it all. It's got the 3 single coil pickups, the new maple neck, and the new 2-point bridge. I love this guitar. It's awesome. Next up, for all of you Les Paul lovers, this is what I think you should be gigging with. It's the Epiphone Les Paul Classic Heritage Cherry Sunburst. This is a great guitar and it's only $849. Now for all you metal guys, this is kind of cool. I like this guitar. It's an Ibanez RG370. It's got it all. It's got the pointy Strat thing going on. It's got the 2 humbuggers and the single coil in the middle. And it's got the big ass Floyd Rose. It's fantastic. And that also is $849. Now, if you want a PRS, why not go the custom 22 SE? It's fantastic. It's got all the PRS things that you want. It looks the part. It's just awesome. And that's $1159. Now, for you semi-hollow guys out there, I actually really like this guitar and I nearly bought one, and if I needed a semi-hollow, this is the one I'd buy. The Ibanez AS93. It's an awesome guitar, it feels great, and it's going to do everything you jazz guys want it to do. So there you have it. We got 5 great guitars for around $1,000 each. We got a Strat, we got a Les Paul, we got a metal guitar, we got a PRS type guitar, and we got a semi-hollow body. And I've played all of these guitars, and they're all great, and I would gig with any one of them. And I think so should you. So here's the thing. What I'm talking about here is where you're playing and who you're playing to. Now, unlike purpose-built live music venues, these small pubs, bars and clubs are just not set up for live music. Now sure, they may have a stage and they may even have a PA system, but most of the time that PA system is just enough for the room. And then you fill that room full of people. Now don't get me wrong, I love playing these gigs. You can have a lot of fun with the crowd and the vibe is awesome. But you've got to remember, you're going to put some live drums there. You've got a pretty muddy bass, a little uncontrolled. You put some live horns there, maybe even a keyboard player. Then there's your guitar, and then you've got to accommodate the singer. Now, in all of that, If you're lucky or really experienced, you could probably get a pretty good sound for that venue. And that's the reason why you don't need expensive gear when you play those gigs. All those nuances that you hear in the studio or in your practice area between a really expensive guitar and a mid-range price guitar, they're all gone. They're all swallowed up by the mix, and they're all swallowed up in the audience and the venue that you're playing in. And this is why I really don't think you need expensive gear when you do those gigs. Then you've got to look at the audience that you're playing for. Do they know or even care that you're playing with an Epiphone Les Paul and not a $4,000 Gibson Les Paul? Do they know that you're using a soul food and not an original clone? Of course they don't. And of course they don't care. All they care about is you playing the music that they love. They want to have a great time. They want to go home and they want to talk about the great night that they had and the band that they saw. So the next time you look at your gear and you think about where you're playing, have a think about, do you want to take that guitar, do you want to take that amplifier, or do you want to take those pedals with you to that gig? I know when I replaced my white Stratocaster, which is going to be pretty soon, I'm going to go back to that Mexican Fender Player Stratocaster, because that's the one I'm going to buy. So there you have it, another episode of Boomer Guitarist Says. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you subscribe. I hope you leave a like, and I definitely hope you leave a comment below. I read them all, and I try to reply to everyone, and who knows, like Si, you might get a shout out too. Until next time, peace and love, catch.